And we are back. You're tuned into what's going on right here on Fox Sports 1280. This segment is brought to you by our friends over at SavvySeats.com. If you need any type of ticket whatsoever, go to SavvySeats.com. That's SAVVY Seats.com and expect to speak to Americans. Expect to speak to the greatest customer service reps of all time. And hopefully you'll luck out and you'll get to speak to the next guy. The owner of Savvy Seats is here with us today. And of course, regular on our show and New York Yankees correspondent, the great Tommy Gucciardo, is here. What's happening, Tommy?
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me, man. I always love your intro music. It always gets me in the groove, man.
Oh yeah, a little Marvin Gaye to get things started.
Yeah,
It's just
gets you
amazing.
excited, gets you ready to talk, gets you ready to roll, just perfect, perfect.
It's really nice. And I saw a post online, and I wasn't sure if it was just a story and somebody accidentally called you it, but do you have a new nickname? Is Tommy Tickets the new nickname that we
I
have going
guess.
into the off season?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I've had plenty of nicknames before in this world. But yeah, I was with a crew of guys and there was like five Tommies. So they named me Tommy Tickets. So or Tommy Savvy, whichever one. They were debating which one they wanted to call
Ooh,
me.
Tommy
I
Savvy
kind of
is
like
hard.
Tommy Savvy.
Yeah, that's a crazy nickname. Tommy
Yeah, I like
Savvy is
that.
a good nickname.
Yeah. So I
I
told him to
like
name
it.
me that.
So I see you keep up with the broadcasting, and it was what, a wrestling podcast they had you on?
Yes, yes, yes. Really good guys, Fight Factory Wrestling. Dave and the boys are really, they got a good thing going there. They did some stuff we did a WWE for SummerSlam. We did an event, and they were a big part of it. And they're just great guys, man. Great guys.
Oh yeah, and I mean, the unfortunate passing of Hulk Hogan really makes you think about the state of wrestling now. I'm kind of thinking, Tommy. I'm not sure if you're paying attention too much to the storylines, but I think that they're priming up for a return of Vince McMahon.
Maybe I don't know. I'm not listen. I stopped watching wrestling. I just got back into it again. Because we did the SummerSlam, and I had all these guys that were telling me about wrestling, and they were talking about wrestling. I actually went to one night. I thought it was cool, man. It was fun. I relived my youth one more time.
It's a spectacle. It's a
Yeah.
circus. It's a performance, and some great athleticism. But that being said, it's been a drastic situation. It seems now, Tommy, that this is the fourth season that the Yankees have had this terrible mid-season slump in which everything falls apart at the rails. What do you think? Is this going to be maybe a repeat of last year where we somehow get it together and make it back to the World Series? Or what are your hopes on this year's New York Yankees playoff potential?
I'd rather keep talking about wrestling. No, I got to tell you, like, my friends always like at the beginning of the year, if they lose two games, the season's over. Halfway through the season, if they're on a 3-game losing streak, the season's over. And I'm always the one that says, hold tight, stick with it. I got to tell you something this year. I just watch this team. Besides Judge giving it his all every single night, I just don't see. There's something missing from this team. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's heart. I don't know if it's fight. I don't know if it was like going into the World Series last year because they steamrolled everybody, right? And then when they got to the World Series, they basically, I mean, they got steamrolled, but I think they let a couple of blunders get them steamrolled, and I think they lost that little bit of fight from there. I think that's what happened. Maybe it took a little fight out of them. They started the year really good. They started playing better teams, and I don't know. Maybe they just don't have it in them. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I really don't. This is the first time in a really, really, really long time that I do not have faith. And you know what? This is the year they're probably going to win the World Series.
Let's hope so. Let's
You
hope
know?
because I feel the same way every time I have those sentiments. Oh, this might be the end. I always have the same thing happen. You're let down, or maybe they go a little further than you think. Like now, here's my whole thing: is that this year we don't have, and it goes without being said, we don't have Juan Soto, and it is that big of a difference. And
Oh, you
sadly, I'm
really
not
think
sure.
so? You really think so?
I do. I
If
really
you
think so.
but
I
look at
really think that
Bellinger. Bellinger is having
I get
phenomenal
it.
numbers.
Great, and he's playing better in the outfield than Juan Soto, but there's just something about that fear factor of having that Juan Soto, Aaron Judge next to each other in the order that I mean, look, there was never anybody that good together in a very, very long time, side by side in the lineup. So to me, it's almost like Juan Soto went to a place where he can't be the Juan Soto that's the best version of Juan Soto. He's now in a role where he gets paid so much more than everybody, and they expect him to be a leader. And as we see what's going on in New York on the other side, he's not that kind of guy. He's more of like the I don't want to say the second fiddle, but his personality type is just a cocky, villainous type of dude, almost like an A-Rod. And A-Rod worked next to Derek Jeter the same way that Soto worked next to Aaron Judge. So sadly, as I watch both these teams struggling, I can't help but think that Soto going to the Mets was worse for both teams. And I know that we have these insurance factors with, you mentioned Bellinger. We were able to get Max Fried, who, by the way, has been falling apart also at the seams.
Yeah, but you can't expect the pitcher to be that. I mean, he's still dominant, So he had a couple of bad outings, and it kind of screws up his ERA and his WHIP. But he's still having a phenomenal year. He's still out there throwing, and keeping them in games. So you can't say, listen, you mentioned A-Rod and A-Rod was a leader. As much as you probably, a lot of people looked at him as a villainous type, he was a leader. And if you ever listen to interviews with him, he is a student of the game. Like, he knows, he'll even talk to you. Like, you listen to his interviews and he'll tell you, like, on his 450th home run, it was a 1-2 count, who was on base. And like, he understands the game. Did he take steroids? Did he get in trouble for that? Maybe, like whatever that was. But he is a student of the game and he was a leader. Juan Soto is not a leader. I am 100. Like, you look at him, he is selfish. He is all about himself. Is he a good ball player? I think what you're seeing now is the Juan Soto that everybody gets. I think last year was just special. I think he fit in at the right time. He knew that that was the year that he really had to shine. And he had a great team behind him. And he had a great guy protecting him. And he played his ass off. And that's it. And look what he got. And I don't know if he stepped back. I don't know if he didn't step back. I'm not in his head. I don't know the guy. But I think what you're seeing now is the Juan Soto that you're getting. And that's why the Yankees didn't go that extra mile for him.
Well, that being said, if this would be the Juan Soto that we got playing in pinstripes, of course we'd be upset. But I don't think we'd see that same Juan Soto. I don't know, we could sit here all day talking about what.
Yeah, we can analyze who he is, what he is.
But in general, just a different thing about, and you could just see in the way that he moved, he was happier playing with the New York Yankees and within that organization. It was very, very obvious to me, at least when you see how the guy is now. Now, all this being said, I feel like this year's Yankees team could maybe get further. Not really too far in contrast to what you're saying. I know that, like, deep down you're saying, oh, maybe they could actually win the World Series. They have all the pieces right there.
They do.
If you look at the names on that roster.
Yeah, it's not about the names. It's not. But if you look, they have players that, even like Ryan McMahon, right? Like, Ryan McMahon, if something happens in a World Series game, he's a solid defender, right? He's not going to do like what Glaber did in the first game and make a dumb play, right? And if you really look back at it, I'm not trying to nitpick on him, but that changed the whole series. We had that game, right? So I think, with a guy like Ryan McMahon, solid, Jazz is good at second, you have Goldschmidt at first. Volpe is really a good player. I just think that he got in his head for a little bit. And you got to remember, he's playing a position, shortstop, that everybody compares him to Jeter. No matter who's going to be there, everybody is always good. Even if you had, Lindor there, everybody's going to compare whoever playing shortstop as a Yankee to Derek Jeter. So that's big shoes to fill, no matter what. And he's a solid ball player.
He came through the World Series. You mentioned the World Series. He hit that grand slam. He is, he's only in his third year. He's somewhat tried and tested for his third year.
Right.
But what worries me is it's the mental errors and it's the collapse in his defense. It's him swinging for the fences. Great, you hit 20 home runs, but you're batting for 210 average. Like, that's we need somebody that's going to be on base more. And I hate to say, because I love Anthony Volpe. I love that the backstory. I love his love of the Yankees. Apparently, he's a great guy and people love him behind the scenes. But you can't get blinded by that likability. There are sometimes watching him, and you mentioned you couldn't see Ryan McMahon making an error at third base like Glaber did. I could see everybody else doing it at this point. Right. Some of the crazy errors that we've seen this year, it really is just bad baseball and bad base running. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the New York Giants later on, but I'm not done with the Yankees. And we do have our Yankees analyst here. So we're going to go to a very quick break. But before we do, I want to just let everyone know that Tommy is yet again throwing the most phenomenal event at MetLife Stadium. Can you tell us a little bit more about the Savvy Seats tailgate,
Sure,
Tommy?
sure. So we do all events at MetLife Stadium. We do it on American Dream. We do it in the B deck at American Dream, and we try to give an experience. It's fun. We have a lot of great activations there. We just got a mobile cigar lounge that's going to be there, so people can go sit, watch TV, smoke a cigar. Like, who has that at a tailgate at MetLife? We do, right?
Amazing.
We have great DJ, Pro DJ Entertainment's great. I got a great partner in Game Day Hospitality, who's a nationwide tailgate company. So, like, I start picking their brains of stuff they do in other markets, and we're bringing it here, and we want to make it an experience, right? We want people to come there and have a great time, leave there with good food, good drink, good entertainment, go to the game, whether it's a good product on the field or a bad product on the field, feel good about yourself going into the stadium. I can't control what happens once you go into the stadium, right? Like, the Jets could shit the bed, the Giants could be horrible, but before you go to those games, you're going to have a great time.
I can attest to it. Some of the most lousy on-field performances, but it was prefaced by an amazing time at the Savvy Seats
Exactly.
tailgate,
Exactly.
which is located at the American Dream Mall, right outside in between the stadium. You can't miss it. Like you said, there's a cigar lounge there. Don't meet us there, beat us there. It goes down before every home game. And I got a good feeling about the Giants and even the Jets. I mean, look, they're not lofty expectations set for these two teams this year, although there are three quarterbacks, which I'm going to enjoy watching in New York. So I'm very excited. Nobody go anywhere. What's going on? Fox Sports 1280, Tommy Gucciardo in studio, and we will be back soon. And we are back. My name is Ryan Verneuille, and you're listening to What's Going On right here on Fox Sports 1280 Rochester. Normally, I'm joined by Nate Brown Jr. and the great Greg Vaughn, but today I'm joined by a legendary entrepreneur, one of the finest, and a big fan of the New York Giants as well. But before we get into New York Giants with Savvy Seats owner Tommy Gucciardo, I must pose you this question. We talk about the Yankees defense. We didn't talk about the base running, but sometimes that's embarrassing. There are just fundamental errors, and you can't blame it all on one man, especially a manager, because there's so many managers and they have to go through double A, triple A, but it seems like the prospects don't have their heads about them or their wits about them. And then who gets caught in the crossfire? Of course, Aaron Boone. So
Hmm.
I'm trying to look from a very unbiased standpoint. I'm a little bit biased towards him because I was alive when he hit that home run in 2003. Yeah, I'm still letting him live off that. That was pretty badass.
Me
So
too.
I know. See, so let's do our best to put our bias to the side. What is your assessment of Aaron Boone, and is there a chance that we re-sign this man after 2027 or fire him before then?
So I got to pose the question: who's better right now? Like, in this day and age, it's not the Joe Torres, the Billy Martins, even Joe Girardi, which kind of lived by gut, played the percentages and rolled the dice. I'm bringing this guy in. He looked good in the bullpen. This stuff is scripted now. They have conversations before the game, right? They say this lane is for this guy, this lane is for that guy, which I don't understand lanes, right? Like, put the best guy in to strike that guy out, and I don't care if you're bringing your closer in the sixth inning. Some of these games you got to do it, right? Like, we're on borrowed time right now. We had a 10-12 game lead. Now we're behind 6 games. Like, that's a big difference, right? So you have to make up a lot of time. Every game right now is a playoff game. So I don't want to hear lanes. I don't want him defending. Just let him manage, right? That's what you're hiring for. So I'm going to say this. If you fire Boone, right? What about Brian Cashman? What about all his assistants? Because these are the people in those meetings telling him, we want you to do this. We should do that. Now, I'm sure Aaron Boone's in there saying, I don't think that works, so that might not be a good idea. Maybe we should go with this guy. But if you fire him and you bring in somebody else, where's the problem? The problem's not with him. It's with everybody else around him that's giving him the information, all these analysts, all these stats. So I don't know. I can't blame Boone. I really can't. And if you listen to players, they stick up for him. They say he goes and he corrects things. I just feel like managers are almost babysitters right now. They're not managers of old, you know?
I think that his job relies on how Aaron Judge feels about him and how some of
Yeah,
these
right.
bigger
Maybe. Yeah, I don't.
seriously,
Yeah.
because it makes no sense to me otherwise. And I'm at the point, Tommy, where I always defended Aaron Boone too, and it's hard to put one. It's not like he's out there in these guys' bodies playing baseball for them.
Right.
So it's hard to hold the guy accountable for like lousy errors and mental mistakes and things like that. But I feel like it's at the point where the Yankees have lost the fear factor. And I think it starts at the top. It starts with Hank Steinbrenner not being his father, not being this hardworking guy that cared about the Yankees more than anything in the world. We can't force this guy to sell the team.
Right.
It starts with Brian Cashman just under that, who, as much as we love the guy, anybody could have won a World Series putting together that roster in 2009. It's a powerhouse, right?
Right.
So to me, there
you
were
still have to go out and play and get and score and do the like everybody
he has
said.
a $300 million budget to work with, Tommy. He has more money and more backing and more power than anybody has. Now, imagine you take anybody else, any other analyst. I'm sure there are other guys that are just as great as Brian Cashman. But what it comes down to at this point is we've lost the fear factor. And I think it's going to take a full-on reset. Fire everybody. Everybody. Fire the ball boys. Fire the bat boys. Fire literally every single person in order to regain and start from new and rebuild this empire from scratch. That's kind of the point that I'm at right now. There's got to be a better manager.
They don't have. Unfortunately, the New York Yankees do not have that luxury.
What about A-Rod? What if we get it? What if we go and get somebody in the likes of Theo Epstein, stick him in there as GM, and bring A-Rod to manage the team?
But once again, it's the culture. It's the culture of the Yankees, right? If you're telling that you have to go a total reset, right? Like Hal Steinbrenner did this for how many years now? He's not changing and doing a total reset and diminishing his brand, right? Because that's what you do. If you go on a total reset, all of a sudden you're losing 70, 90, 100 games a year. The Yankees cannot afford that. The Yankees cannot. They have TV rights. They have sponsors. They cannot afford that. They have to keep relevant to an extent. 500 or better, right? Like, so that's the stripped down version. You're going 500 and you're not in the pool.
I'm not saying to diminish. I'm not saying to tank the team. I'm saying you got to fire the guys that are not as effective. And this is, you're talking about how much money the company's generating. Like, there's no excuses. When you have a budget like that, there's got to be somebody other. And I hate to sound so harsh. And I know we're on the radio right now, and maybe this is just the fan in me speaking, but the Yankees culture has diminished. The kids don't understand.
I don't think.
I'm sorry, man. Maybe not for our generation, but for kids that are younger than us, they're laughing. For people that are aged 18 to 25 years old, or I'd say 18 to 30 years old, they haven't experienced Yankee greatness and a real culture the way that we did. And I do think it starts at the top, and I do think it's going to take something absolutely gargantuan if they don't win it this year. I mean, how much longer are we going to sit back and watch the same philosophy get us this close? I wasn't alive during the 80s after the 1970s run, but I feel like it might have been a similar feeling where it's like these guys keep getting there, but it's just not enough. And there's not a guy like
they're never firing Brian. Brian Cashman is with this team forever. He's not going nowhere. Hal Steinbrenner is not changing anything. This is what it is. And I heard somebody talking about this on the radio the other day. They're like, when Brian Cashman is done being a GM, they're not going out and scouting the Theo Epsteins, the guy from Tampa, or somebody from the Mets that came out and like rebuilt the team. They're gonna make an announcement that Brian Cashman's assistant is the new GM. Brian Cashman's gonna go up one level and he's gonna oversee everything. That's what's gonna happen. They're not changing this. It's not happening. It's just not. As much as we want it to happen, it's just not going to happen.
Because essentially, he's like to me, he's doing the job of Hal Steinbrenner. The guy has so much trust in his hands that Hal doesn't have to sit and watch every single game like his father had to. It really is all in the hands of Brian Cashman. Now, one last thing here, because we're already running out of time, but it was Old Timers Day. And a lot of the veterans and the Yankee legends aren't really holding punches. Tino Martinez was pissed. And they essentially said that, and you know who else was really pissed was Greg Nettles. And Greg Nettles had a great quote. He said that, Billy Martin would have never let the players get away with this. He would have held players accountable. It's the same thing you hear everybody talk about. So
I,
now, as a Boone fan, do you think he should publicly hold players accountable? Because for all we know, he is screaming in their faces. He's a
You
lunatic.
can't
We see
do
how
that
he.
anymore. It's a different society. You cannot do that anymore, unfortunately. I'm sure he's in there holding people accountable. It's not the Billy Martin flipping a table or punching Reggie Jackson or being held back and screaming. They do it in other ways now. I'm sure there's accountability. If he's not holding his players accountable, then he should be fired. I'm sorry. If they're running that clubhouse, then yes, he should be fired. But I don't think that's happening. Now, I'm not in the clubhouse on a daily. I just hear past players talk about it. I hear, current players talk, and everybody supports him. Like, you don't, like, Lance Lynn randomly came out. Like, who's Lance Lynn? Like, he was there for a cup of coffee, and he's there defending Boone. That tells you something, right?
And like you said, is there really somebody that you could give the reins to? And I say yes. You mentioned, and I don't think he was nearly as good of a leader back then. You say he was a great leader around the Yankees. I remember him being extremely selfish. I mean, look, I'm sure he was fun behind the scenes.
A-Rod is not managing Yankees.
Oh, imagine that though.
He will not,
because his knowledge is.
I know, but he loves what he does, man. He's he's out there. He's in the limelight. He owns a basketball team. Like, how could you not want to be him?
Because
you think he wants to be in a uniform every day? No.
Honestly, I would not be surprised. Because
I wouldn't be surprised, but
so
I got to tell you something. I think
what a final act that would be. What an amazing act to kind of restore his good graces with the New York Yankees organization.
I think 5 years ago, maybe. I think at this point, I don't think that's going to happen. I just don't.
You definitely could be right. Well, you know what? This gives us time, though, Tommy, to have you on again to do some Giants talk next time. But I want to ask you one thing. Who do you think is going to end up being the starting quarterback of the New York Giants come week 17?
Week 17? I mean, if it all depends on schedule. It all depends on their record. If they're 1-5 after the first 6 or 7 games, 2-5, 3-5, and have no shot for the playoff, Jackson Dart will be your quarterback. If they're 4-4 or they're 3-4 and they're hanging around, they're kicking the door, trying to kick the door open, Russell Wilson will be your quarterback. I just think because, and I think Jackson Dart is going to have a great future with them. I just think that they need to put some wins up, but they got a tough schedule. They really got a tough schedule this year. It really is hard.
It's going to be, at least we know that the boos are going to be flowing at the pregame to get ready for what could be a horrible season. I don't want to really keep the hopes up. Like we talked before we got on air that, look, this looks like could be a good Giants team. 3 quarterbacks, which I like to watch. I love me some Jameis Winston. Yeah. I'm super excited about Jameis Winston being over there.
He's just too erratic. At least, Russell, you know what you're getting with Russell Wilson. He'll keep you competitive. Yes. Listen, if their defense plays the way their defense should be playing, and Russell Wilson's hanging in there at the end of the third and fourth quarter, you never know what could happen.
It is going to be an interesting season. Everybody needs to go to SavvySeats.com and order tickets to your New York Jets or New York Giants games, or hopefully to the World Series where the Yankees are going to be taking on the Mets. Yeah, right. But everybody, thanks for listening. This has been another edition of What's Going On with your host, Ryan Verneuille. Greg and Nate will be back next week, of course. Everybody go follow Tommy at, Tommy Gucciardo on Instagram?
And then you can go Savvy Seats VIP.
Perfect. Everybody, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Over and out. Love you. Peace.